let me know. Okay, good. All right, so this session is about how to structure your day, your belief set, and your accountability and support for big success. Now, it's possible, as a matter of fact, it's probable that the skills that got you to bronze or silver or gold, they're good skills. Those are basic skills, but the skills you're going to need to get to diamond, 3-star, and crown are a different set of skills. Okay, and it's a different way of doing business and a different attitude. Let me give you an example. Let's say that to get to bronze, just as an example, it took a certain amount of business savvy, a certain amount of being able to invite and follow up and get people started, get them involved, right? Now imagine yourself, fast forward a year, 3 years, 5 years, and you've got 1,000 people in your group as opposed to 10. Or imagine you've got 10,000 people in your group or 100,000 people in your group. How about 1 million people in your group? Do you think you're going to need some different skill sets? Do you think you're going to need a little bit different organization? Do you think you'll need different attitude? Do you think you'll need to be accountable in a different way? Right? So regardless of whether you've got 10 people, 1 person, or 1 million people, if those numbers are just too boggling, think about when you're 3-star or crown diamond. Do you think you'll need a different way to approach this business as a crown diamond? Isn't it true that you're accountable to more people? And isn't it true that more people are asking for more from you? And at that level, too, because you're actually compensated for the whole company, you're compensated on everybody every month in the entire company, aren't you accountable to the company differently as well? Yeah. So that's what we want to explore. It makes sense to me for you to actually adopt those skill sets, that accountability, and those attitudes today, no matter where you're at in your business, so that you move into the place you're trying to get to. This isn't just about tightening up and firming up where you're at. We're actually going to ask you to take a quantum leap in your thinking. So let's look at how you're spending your day. Now, if you are, again, if you're 100% happy with your check and your pin level and your recruiting statistics and the amount of freedom you have in your life, then this can just be good fun and intellectual, and maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. But if you're not 100% happy with those things, we're going to try to look at even one small change. If you can do one minor tweak in how you're spending your day, how you're investing your day, excuse me, then it can make a massive difference. And let me just give you a quick example of that. Everybody knows what an ocean liner is, right? Or a big freighter. They move big cargo ships. If you take off from San Diego and you're headed to Sydney and you're 1 degree off, you know, you might end up in Singapore or Tokyo or someplace else. 1 degree multiplied over big distance, right? So 1 degree of shift here today in your business can pay you out massively over time. The biggest thing that I want you to look at is how you're investing your time. I'm going to assume that you're like me. Nobody has unlimited hours in your day. You've got 24. You got to eat, sleep, take care of business, other stuff. So you've got some limited time. And it's important to compress your time, or compress your efficacy, your skill into the time you've got. Okay? So if you would, almost everybody's got paper out, write down the number of hours on average that you're investing in your Life Force business. Daily on average. So did you say 3? Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5. Some of you might have the luxury of doing 8. No matter what that number is, I'm going to ask you to actually do some self-assessment now. And this is important. I've got to give you a concept before you can answer this correctly. Has anybody here not had a job? Like you've worked for somebody else? Okay, so almost everybody's worked for somebody else at some other time, or you've owned a business, right? Or you've raised a family, or you've gone to school. So everybody's in one of those categories. You've had to be accountable for your time, haven't you? So let's say you had a job, it was just say 9 to 5, right? Unless you were working in your home, there's this little thing that's called commute time. Everybody's familiar with commute time, right? Got a 9 to 5 job, you're paid 9 to 5. Are you paid to commute generally? No. And for most people, it's at least a half hour, sometimes an hour or more commute time. So if you're working 9 to 5, that's 40 hours a week, and you've got, let's just say, an hour commute per day or on either end of your day, how many hours are you commuting? 5 to 10 hours a week? Unpaid time, right? Unpaid time. So I want to distinguish in life force, in your business, between work time, which is productive time where you're making money, and commute time. Now, who can define productive time? How do you make money in life force? Anybody? Yeah, talking to people and moving products. A sale happens at the company, they cut you a commission check, right? So wouldn't it make sense to focus in, to have a target? A bullseye is what? If you're into making a business out of this, you want to make money, the bullseye is moving product. It's making a sale. That's what makes you money. This is your 9 to 5 make money time. This is all what? Commute time. Now, if you're looking at the 9 to 5 and it looks like this, and you've got an hour for commute, and an hour for commute, that's a little bit of commute time, right? And for most of us, that's acceptable. Oh, I work 40 hours a week, and I make $1,000, and so, a couple hours commuting, yeah, that's just part of the job. That's fine. But if you've got this model going, and this is your productive time, and this is your commute time, do you see how strange that is? Like a lot of commute time and a little bit of productive time? Now, I'm willing to bet, maybe not you, but people in your downline certainly, or the person sitting next to you, or somebody close to you, is doing this model, doing a lot of commute time in your business and a little bit of productive time. So let's look at what that looks like for a lot of people. I'm going to back up for a minute and ask you a question. What's easier for you? And you don't have to answer me this. What's easier for you, supporting your downline or talking to somebody new about the business or the products? So we're getting a lot of answers, right? Thank you for being honest. Does supporting your downline make you money directly? I mean, it's a good thing to do. It's wonderful. It's part of the job. But is supporting your downline commute time or paid time? It's commute time, clearly. Is coming to Dream Academy, is that commute time or paid time? Commute time. Wonderful. You should be here. This is great. This is important. But are you making money here in this session? No. You're setting yourself up to make money. You're commuting to the job to make money. Right? What about reading a book about network marketing? Is that commute time or commute time? Clearly. What about thinking about making calls? Getting a lot of recognition on that one. That's clearly commute time. Putting together your warm list. Commute time or making money time? Commute time. So you guys getting the impression that a lot of, not you, maybe the person on either side of you, a lot of their time is spent commuting, and a little bit of time is spent making money. So here's the key. If this is you, what do you want to do? What do you want to do about this now that you know the truth about it? Yeah. You want to shift to productive time to make money. Unless your check is where you want, your rank is where you want, your BV is where you want to get more BV and make more money, right? So let's look at some strategies. First of all, tell the truth. Okay? If you put down, I work 3 hours a day in my business, I want you right now to do an honest assessment. We're not going to ask you for the answer. Honest assessment. How much is commute time? How much is work productive BV cash check from LifeForce time? Just write down your answers. And what we want to look at here are ratios. Ratios. And if you didn't major in math, that's okay. I'm going to explain what that means. Okay, in this model of 40 hours a week of work time, right? 40 hours a week of work time and 10 hours, let's just say, of commute time. That's a 4-to-1 ratio. It's, 25% commute and 75% work. That's pretty acceptable in the world, isn't it? 75, 80, 20. Everybody, 80-20 rule. Yeah, I commute 20%, but I'm working, I'm making money 80% of the time. How many of you have this going on in your business? You're 80% of your time currently, you don't have to raise your hand, or you don't have to not raise your hand and embarrass yourself. Ask yourself, am I putting in 80% of my time talking to a new person about the business or the products or both? And if you're not, this is where a little bit of shift can get you right to Sydney instead of Tokyo. Right? This is a little shift in your thinking. Now, I said tell the truth about it. You want to tell the truth about your ratio. What I'm going to recommend is that you consider an 80-20 ratio for your daily activities. 80% of your time is directly prospecting for your first line with new people on the business or products or both. Your lips are moving and an eardrum is vibrating. You're not thinking about it. You're not preparing for it. You're not doing your warm list. You're not reading a book. You're not talking to your upline to get pumped up. None of that stuff. That's your commute time. Do all that you want outside of what? Your core work hours. Your core work hours. So this is digging a little deeper now. Your core work hours. What are those? Well, those are the times you're absolutely, unequivocally, guaranteed going to show up and actually work. Now, if you're getting heart palpitations over that, I want to assure you, you can do this. How do I know that? Because you've either had a job, you've been through school, you've had a family, you've been in the military, you've done something where you were accountable to show up 9 to 5, awake, mostly awake, and you had to do some productive work during that time. And you showed up almost every day, almost always on time, and you were almost always productive. Now, how do I know that? Because you would have been fired or failed, or somehow you probably wouldn't be in this room. There's other rooms, and they have funny windows with these things on them that you're not there. You're here. Okay? Look, the point is, this is not radical or out of the box or different. This is just asking you to hold your business in a similar way to you have held somebody else's business in the past. I'm going to assume for a minute everybody's had a job. You have had a job, and I'm saying this with all due respect. It may not have been 9 to 5, but let's just say 9 to 5. You had a 9 to 5 job. You showed up almost every day at 9. You worked through the day, and you left at 5. Now, some days you were better than others, granted. But you consistently showed up day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, maybe decade after decade for somebody else in their business. And you got a wage. Now, no disrespect, but it was peanuts compared to what you can make here. Here, this is your business. Are you willing to give your business at least the same respect and the same investment you gave somebody else's business? Are you willing to do that for yourself, for your family? Are you willing to just do that in your own business? Are you willing to set hours for yourself, 9 to 5, 2 to 3, 6 to 8? You pick the hours. But are you willing to commit to show up in your business day after day, month after month, year after year, and buy back the rest of your life? Have freedom. Are you willing to do for yourself what you've already done for somebody else? And you know what the beautiful thing is here? Guys, you don't need to work 9 to 5 here to make an extraordinary income. You really don't. But what you do need to do is be focused, be disciplined, and I'm going to suggest be accountable. Okay, so just take a minute and reflect. Now, I've done this for other people. Am I willing to do this for my own business? Yes or no? Yes or no? Am I willing to invest a modest amount of time in my own business for a life of freedom, to own the rest of my life? Now, if the answer is yes, let's look at how practically that works. Let's look at how to make this work for yourself. So let's pick some hours. Let's say you're an evening worker, you've got a day job or a family. Let's say you're going to work 6 to 8. You're going to work 6 to 8 every day. How many of you, and you don't have to answer for me, but how many of you have published business hours? Remember step 4, I think, of the Getting Started or the Field Training Manual? There's certain, yeah, so some of you have hours, right? But how many of you consistently work those hours without fail? And I know some of you do, but I'm asking you to ask yourself, are you as, I'll use the word religious without religious connotation, are you as religious about it as you were for a 9-to-5 job working for whatever you worked for? You were pretty much on time every day, weren't you, for that job? Some of you still are. Are you that discipline's the right word in your own business? Because if the answer is no, then you really want to look at what you're committed to. Are you committed to having success in your business? You're committed, you're doing it for somebody else. Are you at least that committed for your own business? See, what we're going to go over here, there's no secrets here. I'm just going to lay this out in terms that you're already familiar with and ask you some questions that you decide. Okay? Why do you show up 9 to 5 for somebody else? Anybody? Why do you show up 9 to 5?
Guaranteed money.
Guaranteed money. What else? You'll get fired if you don't. That's the answer I'm looking for. You might show up at 9:15 occasionally, but if you show up consistently late for work, what happens? Reprimand. What happens if you get enough reprimands? You're out the door. You're fired. Let me ask you a question. I mean, let's say you're making, I don't know, what's minimum wage? She said, let's say even making $10, $20. Maybe you're making $40 or $50 an hour. How'd you like to make 100, 200, 1,000 an hour? Yeah, pretty good, huh? Pretty enticing. And yet, for, pick your number, 10, 20, whatever, $30 an hour, you're on time for somebody else's business. Are you willing to do that in your own business? And you might sit here and say yes, but the truth is in somebody else's business, you will get fired if you're late. Now, can you adopt this technology of the workplace in your own business? Would it make sense to do that? This works. There's lots of people that go to work for other people, don't they? Day after day, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. So it works. It must work somewhere along the way. Are you open to taking that same technology structure and putting it in your business? Yeah. It'd be a smart move. This is how the world works. This is how human beings have evolved. This was designed around people. It works for people. It worked for you for a while. Can you put it here? Okay. So what's missing? What's missing? If you don't show up here, or you're late, or you're not awake during the day, or whatever, you're going to get fired, right? What's missing here? In the accountability. What happens tonight? You say, oh, I'm going to work 6 to 8 tonight. 6 o'clock, the rerun of Bonanza's on. You go, well, man, I can't miss that. I don't know what Hoss is up to, but I'm going to figure it out. Am I going to call you up tomorrow and say, how come you didn't show up for work? No. Is your upline going to call you up, your direct upline? No. Is your downline going to call up and say, how come you didn't show up? No. Nobody cares. Do you care? I don't know. Do you? Look, this business is easy to do, right? Everybody agree? Would everybody also agree it's easy to not do? Yeah? It's easy to not do. That's the challenge here. It's too easy to not do this because nobody's watching. You know what the good news is? You got no boss. You know what the bad news is? You got no boss. So I would like to think that human beings can suddenly develop discipline and just, I'm going to do this and then go do it. And there's a few people that can. But for most of us mortals, it doesn't work that way. We need to be accountable. We need to be accountable to somebody or something. Now, if you agree with that, then let's look at some strategies for that. How can I be accountable? Now, first of all, I want to distinguish between being held accountable and holding myself accountable. Being held accountable is what? It's this. This is what happens here. You're held accountable. There's a time clock on the wall, or there's a boss in a cubicle next to you with a nicer blotter pad or something. And you're held accountable. You didn't show up? Well, you're canned. You're fired. They're watching. One way or another, they're watching. What about your business? Who's watching? Don't say nobody, but almost nobody, right? You are, if you're awake. Meaning bonanza's over and, gee, I missed work. Look, when I asked earlier about who has published schedule and who sticks to that schedule, the first piece to drop in is actually get your schedule and publish it. Who do you publish it to? Well, you publish it to yourself first. How about your family? Make sense? How about your coworkers, meaning your upline, your downline? How about announcing to the world? Now, why would you do that? Well, for one, if you've got a business, a retail business, and you have a sign out that says, I'm open when I'm around, when, you're not going to stay in business. And in this business of relationships, doesn't your downline need to know when you're working so that they can count on you for certain things? Yeah? And wouldn't it be helpful for your upline to know so they can be counted on? Yeah. So publish your hours. Okay? The other piece about that is, I don't know if you're like me, but if I get boxed in enough, I'll actually do something. But if it's too loosey-goosey, I probably won't. Yeah? So the more I can box myself in by saying, well, I'm working 6 to 8, world, and I know people are watching, am I more or less likely to show up and go to work 6 to 8? I'm more likely, and probably you are too. Okay? What about this piece about when I don't show up at 6 or 9? Now I've got people watching. But you know what it's easy to do as a human being? It's easy to make excuses and rationalize. And, oh, yeah, well, maybe they're watching, but they'll never really know what I was doing. Here's where being a business owner is distinctly different than being an employee, is that this is where discipline comes in. Now, I just want to say a word about discipline. I actually grew up in a household that had enforced discipline. In those days, it wasn't politically incorrect to discipline your children physically. So, it was part of my life. Discipline was not a good word for me. Matter of fact, it was a nasty word. And then I had the fortune to be in military school at a young age, boarding school, and discipline was definitely not something that people encouraged, right? It's pretty tough. So I had a real bad attitude about discipline, and maybe culturally you do too. However, I want to share something Jim Rohn, who's a business philosopher, once said, and it just opened my eyes, is that discipline is your best friend. And it is the cornerstone of success in business. Discipline, self-discipline specifically. Why is that? Because discipline creates accountability, or accountability creates discipline, which creates results. Now, there's self-discipline, and then there's discipline that's buttressed. Here's an example of discipline that can work in the 6 to 8 routine. And we actually did this with a group, and I'll tell you a funny story about it. So the idea is that people in the group said, okay, I'm going to work 6 to 8 or 5 to 7 or whatever their hours were, and I commit. If I don't actually work 6 to 8, then there's a penalty involved. There's a cost, right? There's a cost 9 to 5. You don't show up at 9, you're fired. In this case, we can't fire you. It's your business. Nobody can ever fire you here. But if I don't show up and work 6 to 8, then I'll buy you ice cream. Or I'll clean my neighbor's toilet. Or I'll write you a check right now for $100, and I don't care if my kids are starving. If I don't do that, what I said I'm going to do, you cash that check. Okay, well, that's where accountability comes in. Very good. So, in other words, we've got something at stake here, right? You got some skin in the game. How many of you want to clean your neighbor's toilet? Ugh. How many of you want to write me a check right now for $100 and commit that if you don't do it, I get to cash the check? Yeah? See, so what we're talking about, you don't want to lose your job. How about putting something at risk here, right? How about putting something at risk? And you choose what it is. It could be no coffee. It could be no TV. It could be doing something or not having something, and make it appropriate. But make it burn enough that you're not going to do this more than once. You get stung with it once, you're saying, nah, it's just easier to do it. Isn't it easier to go to work than get stung? Yeah. So use that same technology. Layer it in here. Put something at risk. Now, ultimately, my word's at risk. My word's at risk. I will not go back on my word. I value my word too much. If I give you my word, I'm going to do it. And ultimately, that's where we all want to be. And, you know, starting a new business, starting a new industry, a new career, we may need some support, right? So, no shame putting something at risk until you don't need it anymore. It's just a support. So let's say that, okay, 6 to 8, I'm going to work. If I don't show up for work, if I'm not productive, then you cash the check, or I'm going to do this, or I can't get that. Okay, so now suddenly there's some accountability, there's something at risk. Now, how do I, as your upline, you've written me this check, and how do I know? Well, it's not really important that I know as your upline, but it's important that you know, and it's important that you know that I know. Do you get that? Like, I don't want your money, but it's important that you know that I know whether you show up for work or not. Same as here with the boss. So how would you do that, anybody? What would be a way, other than me moving into your basement, what would be a way for you to have me, for you to hold yourself accountable to me?
Just clock in, call in.
Clock in, call in. Now, if you worked in a manufacturing job, don't they have this thing called a time clock? And even if you're in an office, sometimes they have accountability. Yeah, clock in. What about if 5:59, you were to ring me as your direct upline and say, Michael Jude, it's getting on 6 o'clock, I'm going to work. Here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to make 30 dial-ups an hour for 3 hours, and I'm going to get 5 invites out, and I'm going to do 16 follow-ups, and I'm going to move 100 BB of product. Pretty cool. 8:01, you ring me back. Michael Jude, it's 8 o'clock. I did 14 follow-ups, and I did 6 invites, and I moved 200 BB. You know, my voicemail has a time date stamp. Funny that. It knows exactly when you called in, and it will have that information whether I answer the phone or not. How about email? Doesn't it have the same thing? Time date stamp? Text? You guys, there are ways to be accountable. There are ways to be accountable. Now, here's the shift. Again, employee, I'm going to be watching. Business owner, you're watching. But you know that I'm watching, that you're watching. Yeah? That's the difference. Difference is, in an employee, I'm holding you accountable. You will be here at work or you'll get fired. As a business owner, you're holding yourself accountable to me. See, I wouldn't go to your upline and say, will you hold me accountable for working 3 hours a day? And I'd go, no. Why would I want to do that? That's not my job description. But if you came to me and said, can I hold myself accountable to you to work 3 hours a day in my business? I'd go, sure. Let's negotiate what that looks like. The responsibility is on you as the business owner, not on me as your boss. I'm not your boss. I'm not your employer. I'm your upline. Big difference. Okay? So you're starting to see how we can take some of the same technology and put it in place here. What about rewards? What about rewards? Wouldn't it be really cool to allow yourself a chocolate or a cup of tea or television or whatever it is for you to do this? A little reward goes a long way, especially in the beginning. Especially in the beginning, a little reward. Now, you can cascade this into, when I do this for a week, I get this. When I do this for a month, I get this. When I hit bronze, I get this. When I hit platinum, I get this. When I hit crown diamond, I'm taking my whole family on a round-the-world cruise, like Kathy did, or to Mexico, which was 26 people or something. Paid for it all. So look, risk, reward, risk, reward, risk, reward. I've given you a couple examples how you can do it. Be creative. Do it your own way. You don't need to do it exactly like that. But use the same dynamics that work so well in the business world and put them right here for yourself in your individual business. Make sense? Yes, Jenica.
Question on an earlier subject.
Yeah, please.
Way to point it connected. Okay, so you were talking about the 80-20 rule.
80-20 rule, yeah.
About being 80% effective.
Yeah.
And doing all outreach, follow-up, active time.
Yes.
So, since we're talking about going gold to crown diamond.
Yes.
And so we've got downlines we're working with, and if we are 80% effective,
Yeah.
they're growing.
Yeah.
So we have very quickly a whole large number of people are following up with the products, the business, they have people.
Yes.
And they're looking to us to train them, get them going.
Yes.
Do you have some strategies, or how do we
Yes.
keep our time balanced? Because I think you'll for a
Yes.
time I can focus that long
That's right.
outreach. But
That's
then
right.
I'm focusing
Okay, excellent question. So the question is, how do I maintain 80-20 as my group gets bigger? Is that the essence of it?
when it's growing.
Yeah, because the group's growing, and guess what? They need training, they need support, they need three ways. They might want to hold themselves accountable to you. Perfect question. Perfect question. And this is actually a piece we train in our leadership training, and it's called systems. It's called you leveraging what's already there, the systems that are already there. Why would you want to reinvent the wheel? See, we're just taking old technology and applying on your business. There's a different way to do that too, and it's called using the systems that are already in place. Do you need to train everybody that comes in your group?
Well, if you train people well, they'll train their people well.
That's right. You train your front line, don't you? And don't they train their front line? Well, there's gaps in there, and sometimes you got to reach across. But as a crown diamond, if I had to train everybody in my group, or do three ways for everybody in my group, or change their auto ship, or all that, I wouldn't have a life. Built correctly, this model yields more and more and more freedom, not less and less freedom as it gets bigger. The trick is to leverage the systems that already exist. Do we, in fact, have training already in the can, available 24/7? Yeah. You know, the field training manual, the old 10-step, any of those systems for getting started, do I need to go through every page with every new person that I personally recruit? The answer is no. I say, here, you download this, you go through all the blanks, you fill in all the blanks, and then we're going to schedule the time to go over your answers. Now, I owe that responsibility to the people I bring in, but they also then owe that. That's duplicatable. And can't you, in fact, and don't you, I think you already do, put in place group calls? You see, I will very rarely train or coach somebody one-on-one anymore. If I'd known this when I'd first gotten going, I would have almost never done that. If, for example, Cindy has a business question, she says, you know, Michael, Jude, can we talk about effective invites? I say, great, Cindy, let's schedule a conference call and get the group together, and we'll do that. I'm going to talk to 10 people instead of one person. That's how I get more and more freedom. The trick here is to be smart and use leverage. To use leverage. And if you don't have it, get somebody upline, downline, get somebody that's got it. This is about creating more and more freedom, not more and more dependency, more and more more and more work responsibility. It's about creating independence and freedom. So how do you escape the 80-20 tyranny? Yeah, here's what I would say. First of all, the 80-20, until your check is where you want it, I would highly recommend you consider 80-20. 80% direct prospecting, one-on-one, mouth moving, eardrum vibrating, recruiting for your front line. How do you deal with the other growing stuff that looks like more than 20%? Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't need to. Do you ever stop and think how much of the stuff you do, either if you waited a week, would disappear? or can be done somewhere else or already exists and you can point toward it. Here's a good exercise to do. Do what's called a time audit. Okay? Just get a piece of paper, put it on your desk, and have a little alarm that goes off every 10 or 15 minutes. Write down what you've just done over the last 10 or 15 minutes. And then go through that later. It's going to be very revealing how you spend your day. Are you investing in new business or are you spending it doing commuting? Or doing stuff that doesn't need to be done by you? Yes, Lydia. Yeah, very good. Yeah. So,
when we are supporting someone by doing a phone call to a customer or member, then we consider that an RDA, even if it's doing their downtime.
yeah.
So without them having to be 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Because it's still making money for your team, even though you're doing it with
Yeah.
your team member.
Very good.
It's still making money for you.
So I'm going to repeat this. What Lydia was saying is that the RDA, the daily actions that make you money, right, should happen during prime time, which consists traditionally 6 to 9. That's for network marketing. It's when most workers are home. Schedule that other stuff before or after, right? Yeah, 9 to 9. And the other stuff that if Kate says, can you do a 3-way, I'm going to consider that a revenue-producing activity. You know, if I'm doing a 3-way with her, that's making me money. That's making money. The trick here is to be vigilant, guys. Don't fool yourself into thinking you're doing the business by reading a book about networking, chatting with the upline, this, that, all that stuff's good. It's important. Coming to Dream Academy, everybody would agree this is a really important thing to do. But it's not a revenue-producing activity unless you happen to have guests here with you. And then it is. So, you know, it's not cut or dried.
One thing I like what Lydia said is such a good reminder of you can do the trainings with your organization during the days, just do it in a way that's actually producing money. So if they have a question about talking to someone, go, let's talk to someone.
Yeah, let's actually do it, make money.
About talking to someone.
That's right.
Actually going to call that person together. Just
Yeah.
in action.
Jenica has a good point. It's about making money even during the training. So that said, everybody break out your cell phones. We're going to, just kidding. But that's one brilliant thing about Dream Academy. We're going to actually break out the cell phones here and make some money during this event. So you're making money at this event. Now, we're coming to the end of this session, so I'm going to just recap a few things. First of all, you want to look at what is a revenue-producing activity. Talking, eardrum, vocal cords are vibrating, eardrums vibrating, you're talking to somebody about the business product of both, resulting in an order. That makes you money. Just about everything else is commute time. Most of us are doing 80% commute, 20%, and I say this with all respect, 80% commute, 20% revenue producing, if that. If you have sacred limited time, make sure it's almost all revenue producing activity. 80% revenue producing, 20% commute. And you know what? Let a lot of that stuff go and you'll never miss it. Okay? Get yourself scheduled. Get yourself scheduled. Firm schedule, publish it, be accountable for it. Put in place a reward and a risk and a reward for those hours. Get yourself accountable to somebody who has an interest and will hold you accountable and not let you off the hook. But you have to hold yourself accountable to them. Put something at risk and then watch your income grow. It's amazing how little time it takes to do this business. It is amazing. People say, oh, well, I've got this amount of time. I said, you know, they say, well, my check didn't go anywhere. I'm not making any money. I didn't sign anybody up. I said, how many people did you talk to last week? And they go, well, nobody. First I asked, how many hours did you put in your business last week? Oh, 10, 12 hours. I said, how many people did you talk to? Well, I actually didn't talk to anybody. I was so busy. I follow up and I'm doing it. I said, okay, how about the week before? No. How about the week before that? Well, I talked to one person 2 weeks ago. And I go, okay, well, there is what's going on in your business. You're doing this eternal commute. Let me ask you a question. Would you commute 8 hours a day to work 2 hours? No. Nobody in their right mind would. if that's what's happening in your business, you now have a recipe for correcting that. And if this information is helpful, please pass it along. Thank you.